my favorite disc jockey and the one that inspired me? Well, I can answer that question right off the bat. I don't even have to think about that. Alan Freed, Moondog Alan Freed. Alan Freed was a disc jockey that came out of Cleveland, Ohio into New York City. And this is the man I wanted to be. He's the reason why I got into radio. I studied him like a book. When my mom wouldn't let me stay up late on a school night, I would turn on the radio next to my bed, turn to WINS at low volume, and listen until I fell asleep. Alan Freed was like the Frank Sinatra of disc jockeys. Everyone followed him. Alan didn't do a lot of production on his show. He didn't have to. He occasionally rang that cowbell, pound on that telephone directory, sing along a few bars of the record at the end, mention the name of the record and the label it's recorded on, read off some dedications, and back to the music. I still get chills up and down my spine when I listen to his old air checks today. As far as I'm concerned, there wasn't a disc jockey back then that could match him, and till this day, I haven't heard anyone that could match him now.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the After School Rock, Monday through Friday. The tops in rock.
Born under the name of Albert James Freed, later became known as Alan Freed, was born on December 15, 1921 in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, to a Welsh mother and a Lithuanian father. In 1933, Alan and his family moved to Salem, Ohio, where he attended Salem High School. Alan always enjoyed music, and at his high school, he played the trombone in a band called the Sultans of Swing. Alan Freed had a great interest in radio, and in 1942, he landed his first broadcasting position at WKST Radio in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. During the course of his career, he even became a sportscaster in Youngstown, Ohio.
My name is Alan Freed. Hey! Here we go!
In 1944, Freed left WKST to work in Philadelphia for WIBE Radio. A year later, Freed's career took off like lightning when he became the people's favorite broadcaster in Akron, Ohio at WAKR Radio, where he played primarily jazz and pop music. But kids grew up, and they got tired of listening to the music their mothers and fathers were listening to. They wanted their own music identity. That's when Alan Freed set the stage. In 1949, Freed went to work in Cleveland, Ohio at WJW Radio. Soon after, he met a record store owner by the name of Leo Mintz. Leo owned Record Rendezvous and was aware of Alan's radio show and asked him if he would play this new music on the air. It's colored music, but the white kids seemed to like it. Alan and Leo convinced management of the radio station to get on board, and they did. Soon, Alan was nicknamed Moondog, and it became the Moondog Show.
Hello, everybody. How y'all tonight? This is Alan Freed, the old king of the Moondoggers, and it's time again for another of your favorite rock and roll sessions, blues and rhythm records for all the gang in the Moondog Kingdom. Saying hello to a lot of folks who've written to us tonight from all over the Moondog Kingdom. This is WJW, the Moondog Show.
From this point on, Alan Freed gained high popularity from the show. There was no email back in those days, but phone calls, cards, letters, telegrams, and the gang of fan mail poured in on Alan's desk every day.
Rock, 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 everybody. Roll, 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 everybody.
In March of 1952, Freed held the very first rock concert and dance, the Moondog Coronation Ball at the Cleveland Arena. Most of the people who listened to Freed were primarily African Americans. However, this concert helped to get more whites involved in R&B music. More than 2 times the capacity of the arena showed up, and when the crowd became unruly and pushed the gates down to get into the concert, it was chaos, and consequently, the show was canceled. But Alan didn't give up, because the following night, he went on the air just before the start of the show to make a public apology.
Hello, everybody. This is Alan Freed speaking. And friends, I want to have a little talk with you before we begin our regular Moondog show tonight about the horrible disappointment of many thousands of folks who tried to attend our coronation ball at the Cleveland Arena last night. And believe me, I come to you very humbly and with deep regret in my heart because of the great disappointment that thousands of you who've been my friends suffered last night. And believe me, I want to say that I suffered right with you. If anyone, even in their wildest imagination, had told us that some 20 or 25,000 people would try to get into a dance, well, I suppose you would have been just like me. You probably would have laughed and said they were crazy. Now, this is entirely up to you. I know a great many of you are sitting on the fence ready to jump off on either side. And if you wish to lay the blame on me for what happened last night, you're certainly perfectly willing to do so. But the story I'm telling you tonight is the true story. Now, as everyone who was inside for the first hour of the dance will testify, we were having a real great time until the crushing pressure of some 10,000 people still outside smashed open the doors of the arena and converged on the inside. When that happened, and some 7,000 persons without tickets bulged the insides of the arena, the whole show went out of control. Now, friends, that's the story, and that's the truth. Now, I'd like to have you do this for me tonight when you call in your request to our Moondog show on this Saturday night. I would like to have you tell Dean on the telephone when you call in that you are with the Moondog. And if you're not with the Moondog, you can tell Dean that, too. Because if enough of you can show faith tonight through your telephone calls, through your telegrams, through your cards and letters over the weekend to tell us that you're sticking with the Moondog through thick and thin, that it'll be worth your while because I will see that everything definitely is made all right again. And if enough of you show and tell us tonight on the telephone that you're going to continue to be loyal to the Moondog show, we will continue with the show. If not, the Moondog program will leave the radio. So please call when you call in your telephone request tonight. Tell us that you're with us because we are with you.
It worked, because during the course of the show that night, telephone calls and telegrams came in rampant in support of Alan Freed. Alan mentioned in that broadcast that he would personally fix the problem and make sure that every person who were ticket holders would get first preference to the best seats in the house at the next concert. At this time, Alan Freed had coined the phrase rock and roll from rhythm and blues in order to break down racial prejudices against R&B music. Not only did rock and roll break down racial barriers, it was a very important movement in music, especially for teenagers at that time. They idolized Alan Freed, and Alan Freed loved them just the same.
You know, it just goes to show you how much a lot of these wonderful kids do for other people all the time and have to take the brunt of all the attacks. And the most sickening thing I've seen in a long time is the marquee of one of our prominent movie theaters showing the picture called Blackboard Jungle, which is taken out of a paper magazine and transformed to the screen, called The Bold Story of the Teenage Terror. There are good and bad among all ages and all groups of people, but it's certainly a shame to single out the teenagers in this country and make everybody look at them just because they're a teenager. It happens to be a sin to the greatest and most wonderful age group in America. Since when has it become a crime to be a teenager?
In the early years of radio, disc jockeys from all over the country, both major and small markets alike, wanted to wind up in New York radio. The Alan Freed Show was so popular in Cleveland that while DJs all across the country called New York called Alan Freed.
Alan Freed here. The station is WINS, your contact station.
After 5 years in Cleveland, Alan Freed was hired at WINS in New York. He worked nights during the time when the so-called traditional good music stations dominated the airwaves. But Alan Freed ate up New York, and Moondog Mania began.